All right, good morning everybody and welcome back to Teal House Farm. So today is Egg Preservation Day. We are getting a lot of eggs right now, which I'm sure a lot of you are as well if you have backyard birds. We have geese, we have ducks, we have chickens, and it's just springtime and everybody is laying. So the geese do not lay year round. They only lay in the spring. I think they lay probably between 20 and 30 eggs each, and we have 2 of them. So that'll be somewhere around 60 eggs if we manage to find them all. The ducks lay every day, regardless of if it is spring, summer, fall, winter. They're really consistent layers, which is one of the reasons we really like our ducks. And then chickens lay heavily in the spring and summer, and then that kind of tapers off fall into winter. They don't lay quite as much. Now, as many of you know, there are things that you can do to influence your chickens to lay regularly in the winter. We don't do that. We think life follows natural cycles. We just need to leave our birds alone if they don't want to lay. So that's what we do. But anyway, it's spring, and that means we have a lot of eggs, especially because the geese are laying now every day as well. And so we're getting a little backed up. So we're going to preserve some eggs. So you probably hear the background noise. Earlier today, we started dehydrating some eggs, and I'll show you what we did to get that started in just a minute. We started that earlier though, because it's a long process. It's going to take a large portion of the day to get done, and so we needed to get a head start on that before I had put myself together enough to put 2 words together in front of the camera. Now, what I do with the vast majority of the eggs is I freeze them. And then we're going to pickle some as well, because I really like pickled things. I have the taste buds of a 100-year-old woman. I like pickled things. I love sauerkraut. I like sausage. I like beets and turnips, and I like a lot of things that a lot of people my age don't really like. And it's not even that I necessarily grew up eating them. We never had pickled eggs at home, but I just really like pickled things. So I'm going to make some pickled eggs as well to keep in the fridge, because I just enjoy munching on them. And a jar of pickled eggs will last about 4 months in the fridge. So make them now, enjoy them all summer. And then the big one that people always ask about, and I always get links to, is about water glassing the eggs. We are not going to water glass eggs. I do not water glass them, and there are 2 reasons why. One, our flock of birds is duck and geese heavy. I guess there's more of those right now than there are chickens, which means the majority of our eggs come out looking like this. They're very dirty. Ducks and geese build nests in the ground, which means their eggs are very muddy a lot of times when you find them, or they've got poop on them. And to water glass eggs, they need to be real clean. Chickens are great about producing clean eggs, especially if you can get your chickens to lay in your nesting boxes and you're good about replacing the bedding in your nesting box. Like, this egg is great. It hasn't been washed. It just came out of the nest looking like that this morning. Those can be water glassed, but these, no, they can't safely be water glassed. They're too dirty, and you can't wash eggs before you water glass them. By the way, if you're not familiar with water glassing, it literally means you take the eggs, you put them in a giant jar and fill it with this lime water mixture, and they will sit like that at room temperature for 8 months to a year safely. The second reason we don't water glass them, besides just the amount of eggs that we have that come out being kind of gross and dirty, is that you need a really big glass jar to put them in, and then you need a place to put that glass jar where it is dark and dry. And so that would, for us, the only place something like that would fit would be on the floor of our pantry. And having a lot of really young children, I can just see that as being something that somebody would try to tip over and break a toe, or something where somebody would unscrew the lid and want to get in there. And so I'm just not going to mess with it. Maybe when the kids are older, or maybe if we ever have a house where the basement is able to be used for food storage, so I don't have to worry about people going down there and messing in things. But right now it's just not a good option for us. So what I do is I do a lot of freezing. We're trying dehydrating for the first time this year, so we're going to do that together. And then I'm also going to make some pickled eggs to enjoy just as a snack. And that should use up a lot of the eggs that I'm kind of backed up on right now. And it'll also give you an idea of what to do with all the eggs. Now, obviously, the 5th option beyond the 3 that we're doing in the water glassing would be to sell your eggs, which is a great option, especially if you have a whole bunch. I choose to preserve because we don't have a huge flock, and there are 9 of us in this family. So in the winter time, when chickens are not really laying, I'm going to walk the extra eggs for baking and cooking and things like that. And so it's just kind of saving the extra now so that I can enjoy them later. Anyway, let's fast forward, or I guess rewind, to this morning, and we'll show you how we got started with the dehydration of the eggs, and then we'll get some other things done as well.
What are we going to do with this knife?
For dehydrating, we're just going to do a small batch. I have never done this before, so we're going to try this one together. So we have just a bullet blender, and we're going to do 5 eggs. First thing, we need a bowl here to crack the eggs into. We're just doing 5 eggs in the dehydrator. We're testing this theory. Everything I read said you need 5 eggs on a layer, and I know that doesn't seem like much, but once you get it in the dehydrator, you'll see it takes up the whole tray. We're using these trays, which are fruit leather trays, but you could also cut out a piece of parchment paper the same size as your dehydrator tray and use that. You can also apparently do this in the oven if your oven gets down to 180 degrees. You don't want to do them hotter than that. It's just going to bake your eggs. We're going to run it through the blender to get it frothy. And then we're going to pour it onto our trays. I did nothing to the trays. They haven't been greased or anything. We're just putting it directly onto the tray. And if you're asking yourself, why are you doing it here and not on top of the dehydrator? It's because the kids really wanted to help, and I was worried that they would dump the egg mixture directly into the dehydrator vent and ruin it. So to be safe, we're just gonna do it here, and we'll just carefully slide it over. I'm plugging the dehydrator over on the other side of the kitchen to keep it out of the way for our other project. So this is a little bit of a journey, but we get there pretty well. It did not spill very much at all. We sit it on the dehydrator. This dehydrator does not have a temperature setting, but it does just run at 165 automatically. It's just a very simple dehydrator, and we're just gonna let it go. All right, the eggs have been going for several hours now. Let me show you what they look like. They look a bit like scrambled eggs right now. They're still kind of tacky, but you can see that they're starting to crack. These are definitely not done. I think we're gonna check in about 2 more hours. So as far as safety standards go for dehydrating eggs, there really isn't a safety standard. And so that's why I'm not doing very many, because I don't know if I'm really comfortable with it, but I really wanted to try it. There's a safety standard for freeze drying eggs, but freeze dryers are incredibly expensive and we do not have one here. So there's a couple issues when it comes to dehydrating raw eggs, and the biggest issue has to do with time and temperature. Salmonella will grow if the temperature in the dehydrator does not reach 165 degrees. You could potentially have an issue with getting really sick. Now, most homestead channels and blogs, if you read them, people who dehydrate eggs say that the best texture comes from dehydrating at 140 to 150, and that is under that benchmark. So we're doing them at 165 today to be safe, and we'll see how that does for the texture. If you do them at 140, it takes 10 hours. So we're doing it 25 degrees higher, so I'm guessing it's going to take 6 to 7. We'll see what happens. And then as far as storage, shelf stability, some people say, oh yeah, just vacuum seal them and they'll last forever on your shelf. And then other places say, don't let them go for longer than a couple months on your shelf, even if they are vacuum sealed. And that makes me a little nervous too. There's not a safety standard there. So actually what we're going to do with these, it's not going to make a whole bunch, but we're going to powder them up in the blender, and then I'm going to put them in a Ziploc bag. I'm going to put them in my freezer because I figure nothing will happen in there, right? And that's where I feel most comfortable. If you want to put them on your shelf, you would definitely want to use an oxygen absorber or vacuum seal, and I would recommend using them up within a few months, which then probably kind of defeats the purpose of dehydrating them. And so, anyway, you don't have to listen to what I say. Like I said, there is no written safety standard by the USDA for dehydrating eggs, which is why the information is all over the place. If you've been dehydrating eggs for years and have never had a problem leaving them on your shelf all year, then cool. But I'm just letting everyone know who's watching this that there's not currently a recommendation. And so when you watch various channels doing this or read various blogs or magazines, you're going to find the recommendations are all over the place. So do whatever you feel most comfortable with. Let's go ahead and we're going to get started on freezing some of the extra goose eggs, and then we're going to use the chicken eggs we have left to make some pickled eggs together. Okay, we are going to freeze the goose eggs, and 1 goose egg is equivalent to somewhere between 2 to 3 chicken eggs in my book. And so we're going to do 1 egg in a pack because most baking and cooking recipes use 2 large eggs, and so this will be perfect. That's what a goose egg looks like, if you've ever been wondering. It's just a giant yolk. I give it a real good scramble, and I'm actually going to use breast milk storage bags because they're the perfect size, and I have 8 million of these after all these years of breastfeeding, so just going to use them up. You could use Ziploc or silicone bags as well. I just go ahead and scramble them because I'm going to be using these in baking recipes or in egg casseroles. I don't think a frozen egg fries well, and so I'm going to only use it in things that are baked in the oven. So just pre-scrambling saves me a step later. When I want to use them, I'll take a pack out of the freezer and let it sit out for about 30 minutes, and then usually it's ready to go. It doesn't take very long. If you lay them flat in the freezer, you can fit more, so we're going to put those outside in the deep freeze. The kids start working on an apple dehydrating project since the dehydrator is already going. So we're going to do the Instapot over here. To do the hard-boiled eggs, to make pickled eggs, we put a cup of water in the Instapot, add the eggs to the bottom. They don't need to be on a rack, just directly on the bottom. Then we're going to put it on manual and do 5 minutes of pressured cook time, 5 minutes of steam release time, and then 5 minutes in the icy water. We're going to need vinegar, water, mustard seed, dill weed, some white pepper, some minced garlic, some canning salt, and some minced onion. I have the proportions written in the description down below for you. We're making the pickling brine for the eggs. We're going to bring it to a boil and then simmer 5 minutes, and then it will be ready to be poured over our eggs. We are sterilizing our big quart jar, and while all that's going on and we're waiting for the brine, we're going to go ahead and peel those eggs. The Instapot really is my favorite way to make hard-boiled eggs. They peel so easily, the kids can do it, and we only had one egg that got sacrificed.
My skin. My skin.
All right.
I think this one's okay. This white is changing colors. Sunshine in our back seat.
Carefully into the jar.
Achy though.
JJ, that's the opposite of carefully.
You do it, I'll go bounce. Cookie? Do you want a cookie? You gotta eat it. Where's the other egg?
Okay, it is now almost 6 o'clock at night. It's 6:15. The clock looks reversed up there. So it's been going 8 hours-ish, I believe, and I think it's done. Cracked and crumbly feeling. I've let it cool down a little bit. I'm not 100% on this. This is new for me, so if you've done this before and you have any tips about being able to tell when it truly is done, let me know, but it's all cracked and it's very crumbly to the touch, so I'm thinking we're good. And it's actually much more powdery feeling than I imagined, so I guess maybe this worked better than I thought. We are going to run it through the blender to make it super powdery, and then I'm going to put it in a Ziploc bag and squeeze out as much oxygen as possible. You want to run it through the blender, Ivy?
Yeah. What else did you put in there?
Just eggs. I think if I did this again, I would do it on parchment paper, because then we could have just rolled it up and slid it into the blender.
But Mom, all the bottoms are going to be like that.
Okay, so there we go. We still got a couple little chunks. So definitely a learning process on this. But it actually is much more powdery than I thought. I am going to put this in the freezer because I'm not 100% sure we dehydrated it enough. I still have a big piece on the tray. The house is really old, as we talked about before, so nothing is flat. And so even though you put it on a flat surface, the dehydrator, it's still got a slight tilt to it, so one side is a little bit thicker than the other, so the thicker side is still going. I have a friend who told me that she uses powdered, she does this, or her parents do this actually, and then they make homemade pancake mix with the egg already in it and then the dry milk in it, and so they can take it camping, and it's an add water only pancake mix. So I'm going to kind of mess around with that idea, maybe get their recipe from them, let you know how it works. But I'm thinking maybe I can make a bunch of Ziploc pancake mixes and either vacuum seal them if I do some more research and feel confident about the shelf life of this, or stick them in the freezer, and then all you have to do is dump one bag to a certain amount of water, and we could make pancakes really easily. It'd be a real simple breakfast that the kids could help with, because the only thing you have to measure out is the water, because everything else is already done, so the mess is kind of contained. So we'll keep you up to date on that. I would definitely say though that overall this was successful, that it actually did make a powdered egg product, which is pretty neat. I still think freeze drying is probably your best way to go as far as safest shelf stability. People who do this, you would use this in place of a powdered egg that you could get at the store. So you could reconstitute it and scramble it. I think it'd probably do better added to dry mixes like muffin mix or pancake mix, but it'll let you make your own mixes that are add water only, and you would have total use or total control of all of the ingredients in your mixes, so you know exactly what was in these easy, fast mixes. So if you are curious about fast mixes that don't have the powdered egg in them, I have one for brownie mix, pancake mix, and a muffin mix, and an all-purpose baking mix that I use, and I keep, there's some of them up here, some of them in front of me on the counter. I will link the video below that has all of my dry good mixes in it if you want to check those out. But we will get started on trying to make up some with this and kind of see how it goes. When we find something we love, we will definitely share it with you. Thanks so much for watching, and we'll see you guys next time.